Okay, thank you, Marco, and welcome everybody to this joint workshop that is jointly organized by Work Package 2 and 3 from the DiSSCo Transition projects. The goal of this workshop is to discuss the prioritization for further development of the core digital specimen infrastructure that is under development in Work Package 3. As you may know, we are working towards a minimum viable product, and a minimum version of that core infrastructure as part of Work Package 3. And in this workshop, we want to discuss what we should prioritize after development of that product, so that we can create a roadmap and continue developing that. So we need your input today for that. We want to know what you think is important to prioritize. So that is the main goal of this workshop. And it's good to see so many people here, and I think it will be a nice outcome. Before I continue, just a short disclaimer. As you may have seen before in presentations from this project, that all the opinions expressed here in the meeting are our own and not opinions of the European Union, who is funding the project. A few housekeeping. Please mute your phone when you are not speaking, because we are with many people in the room. If you have questions or comments, we will have a discussion session, so please raise your hand if you have questions or comments. If you face any difficulties with the Zoom session, please let us know via the chat. And also, there may be quite a few technical terms mentioned in the presentations. And if you do not understand the term, please ask in the chat, and we will try to answer that. Okay. The agenda for this meeting, we will have a short presentation about the current status of the development of the MVP with a demonstration from Sam Leeflang. Then I will shortly present some options for further development. And then we will have two interactive sessions where we want your input on what should be prioritized. And after these sessions, in between we'll have a coffee break, but after these sessions there is also some room for further discussions. And that will be the end of the meeting. Okay, I will now give the floor to Sam.
Yeah, thanks, Wouter. Yeah, so before we go to what we should continue to work on the core infrastructure, I think it's first good to know what is the core infrastructure of DiSSCo. So what is part of the core infrastructure? What are part of the other DiSSCo services? So you at least a bit know where the lines are. I'm Sam Leeflang, work as a developer on the core infrastructure of Naturalis together with Tom and Sulen, both here as well. So feel free to ask us any additional questions. And I'm going to explain what we've been building, what is the part of the core infrastructure, and do a short demo on one of the services that we build on top of the core infrastructure. So core infrastructure. These are the 5 components that are part of it. A digital specimen repository where we store the digital specimen information and other digital objects. A persistent identifier infrastructure where we mint persistent identifiers for the different digital objects, which are the digital specimen, but also for media items and for annotations. We all create persistent identifiers for these objects. These persistent identifiers can be DOIs or handles. We do data processing, publishing. We have an authorization or authentication infrastructure, and we do indexing and APIs. And I think the next slide, where we go through these different processes. Can you go to the next slide, Wouter?
Yeah.
Yeah, here is a bit of the overview of how it all works together. So if you look at DiSSCo, we see ourselves situated by on the left side the data providers. Yeah, I got a couple clicks here, Wouter. If you don't know if it works, data providers. On the left side, which are the CMSs. And CMSs contain already a lot of data, and we want to get that data into DiSSCo, which is here in the center. On the right side, we have data consumers, which are often data aggregators, such as GBIF or GeoCase. And often the CMSs also want to get the data back out of DiSSCo. And in DiSSCo, we curate and enhance that specimen information. And we have two parts of that. We have the human agents, which are humans actually working on the data. So it can be experts enhancing the data, putting in additional information with the specimen. On the other side, we want to scale up and make more and more use of machine agents. And these machine agents are automatic agents that can be in the form of an AI application or any form of application that gets a specimen data in and produces some additional information about that particular specimen. And all of these services, so these DiSSCo services, can run on top of the DiSSCo core infrastructure. And the DiSSCo core infrastructure will provide a bunch of functionalities to enable all these services to create a coherent platform on which they can operate. And the first is that we collect all that information from the CMSs, because that's one of our bases, and harmonize that data to our open digital specimen. And the open digital specimen is our own data standard that we created, built on top of existing data standards. So it's built on top of the TEDWIG data standards, the biodiversity data standards. But we created a bit of additional structure in it. We focused it on the specimen. So often most of the standards such as Darwin Core is focused on the occurrence, but we pivoted it a bit and focused it on the digital specimen. And we aligned it and got inspiration from the GBIF unified model. And this harmonization process and the open digital specimen is essential to create this generic platform on which all of these different services can work on their data. Because if the data is unstructured, is different, has different serialization forms, different ways in which it's displayed, it's really difficult to create these generic services. But because we have just harmonized data into a single data standard, we can make generic services which will not only work on one institution's data, but will work on all of the European institutions' data. So it's an essential part. The minting of the PIDs, already mentioned it, but we created this persistent identifier infrastructure for the DOIs, which we'll mint for specimen. We work together with DataSite. And for each specimen, we'll mint a digital object identifier DOI. And for all the other objects, we'll mint handles, which we will store and ourselves and resolve ourselves in the infrastructure. So that means that each object gets its own unique identifier, which it can use in any of the contexts. It's unique, it's resolvable. It's also decoupled from DiSSCo. So even if DiSSCo would disappear, the DOIs would still contain the information about the specimen. And that's part of what makes the data fair, because fair data is a really, really important concept within DiSSCo. And then there comes in provenance, because if you have fair data, you want the data to be traceable. You want to see what actually happened to the data. So for each object, we create provenance information. And provenance information is basically what happened with the object, when did it happen, who made the change to the object. We all trace all of these steps. So if anybody creates a new object in our system, we create provenance data explaining who was that particular person. And we store it with the unique identifier of that specific agent. And that agent can be a machine, but it can also be a human. In the case of humans, we'll use the ORGIDs. In the case of machines, we use these persistent identifiers. So it's always each change is traceable back to the original agent who created this change. We'll make sure that people can, agent, machine or people, can curate data. So say if there is an issue with the data, if something is wrong with the data, they can flag it, they can comment on the data. They also be able to extend the data. So if you got a piece of information that you want to add to the data, you'll be able to, the DiSSCo core infrastructure will provide the capabilities for you to extend the specimen data that we have, or link the specimen data with any other infrastructures. So let's say I know there's a sequence in ENA, in the European Nucleus Archive. I know there's a sequence that's connected to the specimen I have. Then I want to create that link to that external data source where more information can be found. We also create linkages to ROR, where there's organization information. We'll create linkages to collection information so that you get this specimen in the center, which links out to all of its related data sources in data records in other data sources. And of course, data exposure, so that other people can harvest our data, can check our data, can work with the data, can create their own data products from the data in DiSSCo. And together, this all forms part of what the DiSSCo core infrastructure will provide. And as Wouter mentioned, we already have this minimal viable project, which will be a really minimal set. I think this is actually a good moment to go to the next slide. Yeah. So we have a lot of this functionality in the MVP, but it's really a minimal first setup. So we know that that these functionalities need to be there. But as you see on this image, we'll not provide you with this racing car immediately, because there are too many choices, there are too many ways that we can achieve this. We would really like your input and start iterating with users and looking what's the next part, what's the highest priority that we need to get, what are our focus points that we really need to dig in. We have, of course, limited resources, and we want to use those resources as effectively as possible. And make the biggest impact as soon as possible. So for that, we really need your input in this session. So in the MVP, we have the digital specimen and the DOIs. We have a framework for these machine annotation services. So these machines that can create annotation services. We have an infrastructure where experts can create annotations. We have the data harmonization in place with the taxonomic backbone based on the catalog of life. And now is the question. So we have this focus on data enrichment through these annotations. The question is, what's the next step? What should we focus on next? Next slide. So there are a couple of features that we think can attract early adopters. This is the annotation infrastructure. So if you're looking for this particular feature, we would like you to come to us, and we can see if we can make you one of the early adopters of DiSSCo, so that you can use it and try it and basically guinea pig the system and see how we can improve it and make it more user-friendly. The machine XML data digital specimen, the harmonized data inspired by GBIF, and first for the data ingestion, so for the data providers, we'll first start with the existing infrastructure, which is often there already in the form of the DiSSCo archives and BioCase endpoints, which provide the ABCD datasets. So we focus those on those two because they're often already there, used to supply data to GBIF. But it might be possible that we need to extend this as well. Yeah, I think maybe we have one more slide, I think. Yeah, we also know that there's some limitations. So keep that in mind with the MVP, which is as a limited set of digital specimens. So we won't start with all European digital specimen with all European specimen data, but we will limit with a certain set so that we can give it a try, get a feedback, and improve upon it. We'll start with the OpenDS 0.4 version, which is the latest version where we included the public review comments that we received last month. And yeah, as I mentioned, we only include the DiSSCo core and ABCD systems. And maybe for a quick demo, I can take over the screen, Wouter.
Yeah, I will stop sharing.
Yeah, let me take over. So here it should show discover. Can you confirm, Wouter, that you're seeing the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. So Discover, so this is actually one of the, so the core infrastructure provides the APIs and a lot of other functionalities on top of which you can build these services. And Discover is basically one of these DiSSCo services we build on top of the core infrastructure. And it uses a lot of the functionality of the core infrastructure because we're building this ourselves. And we're building Discover mainly also to show the information in there to provide the discoverability and the expert annotation platform. So what you see is that we have currently, this is the test environment, and we do our own testing because so not everything is final yet. But you see we have about 250,000 specimens a year. They all receive the DOI and all the PID infrastructure. We have different modes of searching. So we have this what you call topic discipline, the different disciplines of the specimen. You can just use a free text search. You can also search either by a digital specimen ID if you know the specific identifier, so the DOI of the specimen, or if you know the physical specimen ID. We have specific search options for you there as well. And if I go to all specimen, you'll see I can now search through all specimen. I can search on the MIDS level. So for each specimen, we calculate the MIDS level based on the specification that's at the moment being created within TEDWIC. And the different topic disciplines. So in this case, you see most of our specimen are botany. We got a couple zoology specimen, etc. We have taxonomic filters. We have filters from countries where you can say, well, give me your specimen in Sweden or in Estonia. And we can also filter on type specimen. So give me all the type specimen with those type. And you can select different specimen and you'll see a kind of small passport, small summary of the information on the right side, which we can increase the amount of information we show here. So everything is open for debate and we can improve upon it. And we have a compare functionality in which you can select a couple of these specimens. Say, well, I want to compare them and see the information next to each other. So if I go back to specimen, and then if I select a particular specimen, let's say I select a botany specimen, in this case, I select this specimen, and I log in, which is an essential part. So for the login, it's important that we have the ORGID attached to your account as well, so that we have a unique identifier for you as a user of our system. So I can log into ORGID. Let me go back to the menu. And collect a botany specimen. I can now say I want to annotate this specimen. And these annotations are a whole topic in itself. I won't go into too much depth. But I can, for example, create a new assertion on this particular specimen. So I want to create a new assertion because I know that this specimen, I made a measurement on this specimen. I created it today. And I'm checked, and it's I know it's a really large botany specimen. I can now say I want to add this piece of information to the specimen and say save annotation. And the annotation will now get its own unique identifier. It gets its own version. It has been created by me on this particular date, and I added these values. So I now created a new assertion connected through the PIDs to this specific specimen, and will now be available for all users to see. But of course, user annotations are nice, but now I would like to check in a couple of different infrastructures. if there's already information available. So we created a couple of, let's say, pilot services that you can run. These are machine agents that will look in different other infrastructures if there's data available. So I will now trigger a lookup in the European Nucleide Archive. I will have a lookup in the Barcode of Life in Bolt and in GBIF, and I will schedule these. And on the background, a process will start where we will check if there are any records in these related data sources. And this then takes a couple seconds. And now they've all been completed. So we did a check in all these different data sources. And now if we go back and I refresh, you will see that we identified a linkage in GBIF. And we know now that this record in DiSSCo, this specimen is related to this information in GBIF. There we are. So the Euros spermum we'll see is this specimen. This is only one of the examples, so we're hoping that we get lots of these machine annotation services and lots of users starting to annotate the specimen. And I think in this session we can look at what are the next steps. What do we want to continue on when we get these systems in place? I think that's all. We'll hand it back to you, Wouter.
Yes, thanks, Sam. I will start sharing my screen again. Okay. We have now seen what is currently there, and it would be good to know what the options are for further development. What is in our backlog? What have we've been thinking about? And I thought it would be good to start with looking a bit back. What demands were mentioned earlier in DiSSCo by our stakeholders? There was an extensive gathering of user stories in IceDig and DiSSCo Prepare projects, resulting in two deliverables, D1.1 and D1.2 in DiSSCo Prepare, where the user stories that were collected were summarized, and there were a few hundred user stories collected. The user stories were all put in our DiSSCo GitHub, so they are still there if you want to look at them. There are about more than 300 user stories from the life sciences, and also more than 100 user stories from earth sciences. The demands, the needs from life sciences and earth sciences are a bit different. So this is a summary where you can see what was mentioned by life sciences, and what you see here is if you look at the left part of the graph, then there's a lot of need for data itself. So distribution data, morphological data, record level data. These are all things that were mentioned by our potential users. I have to say that these user stories were collected DiSSCo-wide, so they are not only things that are in scope of the core infrastructure that we are discussing today, but focus on the specimen information. But also includes needs for other DiSSCo services, for instance, information on a collection level, tools for visualization of data, and other things. What you can also see here is a large demand for 2D images in life sciences. And what's a bit different in earth sciences is that there is much more demand there also for 3D images. You see that the 3 images here are at the right part of the scale. So this is an overview of the earth sciences user stories. You see here that there is much more need for metadata at the collection level, and that's probably because there is far less information published about earth science collections than there is available online about the biological collections. You can see here also the need for the 2 images and three images. But you see also that there is here more need for data integration. That means the linkage with data in external infrastructures, as Sam already mentioned. If I summarize that the demands that were most requested, and if I look at the implementation status currently of our MVP, then you can see that some things are already covered, but other things are missing. If you look at tools for data discovery and advanced search functionality, and the user stories about that, most of these are already covered with the search and filtering options that Sam showed. There was not much demand for advanced search in terms of Sparker queries, semantic data discovery, or use of chatbots, bots or AI. The latter is maybe partly because these user stories have been collected a few years ago, and now there is much more uptake of artificial intelligence than there was back then. But there are parts that are not yet covered. There are a lot of user stories with the need for data to trace the history of the specimens and of the collections. And that is possible in our OpenDS data model, but the data is just not there. Part of that limitation is that you cannot easily share that data with Darwin or ABCD, and that are the standards that we currently support for importing existing data. What's also missing is supporting documentation and information about the specimens. So additional slides and other images supporting the objects information about the collecting events, etc. That is not there, and we have no way currently to share that information. Linking to external data, as Sam just showed, we created a few demo versions of machine annotation services that can link to external resources. So that is there, but what is not yet there is integration of our specimen DOIs, because we still need to create these in other infrastructures. So it would be very nice if other infrastructures like ENA, like GBIF, would integrate our specimen DOIs so that you can easily go from there to back to our infrastructure. Then tools for statistics and reporting. Most of these use stories are on a collection level, not on the specimen level. We have not really implemented any of these for the specimen level. We could do that. The only thing that's currently there is the MIDS level, the minimum information about the distal specimen, which is an indicator for the completeness of a specimen data. Record level metadata, this is largely covered. Tools for annotation, as you see, we have implemented some tooling for creating annotations. Within the user stories, it was also often mentioned that people have a need to pass these annotations back to the systems at the institution, to the collection management systems or other systems that are in use in the institution. So that part is not yet there. Then for 2D images, these are supported. But there are also needs for finding trait information, so describing what is in the images. That kind of information can be described by annotations in our current implementation, but the information is just not there yet. And there's also demand for high quality images, especially for type specimens. And what we currently do is we do not store images in DiSSCo. We just link out to images that are provided by the DiSSCo institutions. So we depend there on what they provide. So if they provide high quality images, then we can link to that. There are some early adopters that we identified. So we did not really look for them, but there were a couple of people that came to us and said, well, we really would like to use your core infrastructure as soon as it's ready. So they have some needs for that, some use cases. Some use cases that were identified were, for instance, the Papillote project in Naturalis. And what they want is they want to use the infrastructure to add identifications to their specimens. So they do some digitization on the Papillote, the butterfly specimens in envelopes that are at Naturalis. And there are missing identifications, so they don't have a name yet. And that also makes that this information cannot be published, for instance, in GBIF and shared online in the bioportal that we host at Naturalis for our collections. So they need annotations tools to make the annotations. They need the data in the infrastructure to make the annotations. And they need to make use of experts, but also of tooling that has been developed in Naturalis for AI guided identification of the species. Then there's the Tetris project, and one topic in the Tetris project is virtual reference collections. Especially Ljomes is working on that. And what they would like from our infrastructure is functionality that you can select a number of specimens to make a virtual collection. And so they need functionality to select these individual specimens and to turn that into a virtual collection with some additional information. And they also need functionality to add additional images, especially images that show details about the specimen, trait information that can be used for identification, so that these specimens can be used as a reference for other projects. So they need some added functionality which is not currently there yet. The Museum of Vienna would like to use the infrastructure to improve the MIDS level as part of the digitization strategy. So they want to supply MIDS level 0 specimens, basically empty records with just an image, and then start using the infrastructure to enrich that information, to digitize the label information, etc. So what they need is a way to integrate the DiSSCo infrastructure with their digitization workflows. Then also as part of the Tetris project, we have some involvement of citizen science platforms like DoDat and Herbenaute, and they would like to see integration with DiSSCo. So ideally, they would like to be able to select a number of specimens in DiSSCo, so they also need virtual collections, and then offload these specimens to their citizen science platforms to do the digitization, and then send us the digitized information back as annotations. So they want integration with our infrastructure, but they also need ways to select the specimens that they want to work on. And what is very nice that we in DiSSCo we will have specimens from all our collections in Europe. So you can, for instance, annotate specimens as with the language of the specimen label, and you could then use that information to make a selection based on language, and have a community of natural language speakers working on these labels. Then we have the DBIF nodes, the DBIF ICA nodes in Europe and Central Asia that have submitted a proposal to DBIF assess project. I don't know if it gets funded. We will see. So Piotr is in the room, I see. So he is the submitter of that proposal. What the DBIF nodes want to do there is use the infrastructure to digitize labels, and if these labels are digitized by making use of machine annotation tools that they want to create to automate that process. And then they want to export that data to DBIF. They want to publish that in DBIF. So for that, we will need an additional publication route to publish the data in DBIF. And then there are people from Recordnats working on mass digitization and extraction of trait information from specimen images. Youssef Sklaap is working on that. And he wants to incorporate the services that he has been developed for that as a machine annotation service in DiSSCo, so that not only Recordnats but all the partners in DiSSCo can make use of these services that have been developed. So I think we in the next phase of development we really need to focus on these early adopters and need to see how we can support them, and we may need to focus also on the things that they need for this which are not yet present in our minimum viable product. There are many options for further development. One thing that we could do is we could focus on extending the data model with missing information like supporting materials, more information about specimen history, the identification for geological specimens, information about permits, loans, specimen status, and there may be other things that you want as well. You can also focus on data that's already there, that's already published online, and focus on adding that data to the DiSSCo infrastructure, and then do quality improvement of that data. Start using controlled vocabularies to improve the quality. We could also focus on implementation of a community trust model and voting functionality, so that we can integrate the annotations that have been made back in the digital specimen data. And we can create a workflow of community acceptation of the annotations so that these can really become part of the data. Another thing that we could focus is on reporting, statistics, visualization, and overview of the status of the specimen information. Things as like key performance indicators, etc. Another thing we could focus on is integration with the local workflows in the institutions. So integration with digitization and publication workflows, with collection management systems, but also integration with external infrastructures, integration with GBIF, LiveWords, GDBN, GeoCase, and other infrastructures. And we could also focus on improved access. So do further work on the advanced search functionalities. We can work on search engine optimization so that these digital specimens can be found through Google and other browsers. Or we can also work on mobile access. So currently you need a laptop, a computer to access the Discover interface. But we can also see how we can support mobile devices to give you access. So yeah, there are a lot of things that we can do. We have limited time and limited resources, so we need to prioritize. And that's where we have a Mentimeter session for. We will start with a session with a few slides to know a little bit more about who is in the room, about you, our stakeholders. And yeah, we want to know what you need, what you think your needs are, and maybe there are things that we did not mention yet that you want to mention. So I now give the floor to Marco, who will lead this session.
Yeah, thanks, Wouter. So as Wouter mentioned, this is the chance for you to also give us some of your own views and perspectives on the needs and specifically on prioritization. Yes, I will copy the link because that's probably the easiest. Otherwise, if you're on your phone, you can also go to menti.com and use the code or the QR code as well. So I'm now going to start the slides. You should be seeing the first question with the map. So something nice and fun for us to start with. Let us know where you're located. Not necessarily at this very moment, but rather where your institution is. So if you are somewhere on vacation, just let us know where your office is based. And if you're exceptionally good at geography, you can even try to pinpoint your city. Because it's quite an easy one, we'll give it 30 more seconds and then we'll move to the next question. If you have any difficulties, just let us know in the chat or directly.
Can you show the slides results, Marco? Or should I do that?
Yeah, that's a good point. I was assuming that people just see also what's going on. I guess if I share my screen, right?
Yeah.
So let's try this. Can you now see the results?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I just need to go back to. Yeah. Okay. All right. So looks like the Benelux is where we are mostly, well, the most dense region for the DiSSCo community, and then we have a nice spread mostly across Western Europe and Finland, with 4 representatives as well, and even one in North Africa. Okay, great. Then we can move to the next question. Now we get to your job title, and let us know also for those who have more than one hat. I think you can put in a few different titles. So let us know your job title. Okay, it's looking very diverse. Different roles from communication officers to more technical profiles. SQL. I'm not sure what that stands for. Some researchers, directors as well, GBIF node managers. Developers, IT specialists. Okay, so that's good because that means that we will also get quite a nice spread of perspectives in the next couple of questions. A couple more seconds for this one. Okay, now we can move to the next question. Why are you attending today? Couple of options here. So you may choose, of course, more of them. Just do it then in the order of importance. So of course, I think by far the most important one should be to join the DiSSCo party, and then let us know also the rest of the less important reasons why you're here today. So it's safe to say that it's mostly just general desire to know more about the core infrastructure, which is logical and expected, I would say. A lot of you represent also DiSSCo stakeholders, and also it's nice to see that many of you also would like to share your views. I mean, of course, other than this interactive session, we will also have some discussions, of course, later on. So you are strongly encouraged to share your views and your opinions when it comes to the prioritization and the next steps for the core infrastructure. Couple of more seconds. Not many party people today. That's the only thing. Perhaps because it's still quite early in the morning. All right, let's go to the next question then. So what should be the priority for further development of the core infrastructure? I believe you can provide multiple responses here, but I might be wrong. So can't see my other screen anymore, but let's see. user needs seems to be the central one, as well as integration with GBIF, interoperability, data harmonization, automation. So many different views here, but it seems that there are a few that stand out a bit more. So interoperability, integration with GBIF in particular, but also I suppose with other infrastructures, data harmonization. Let's give it a few more seconds. All right, we go to question 5. This is a ranking question. So how would you rank the following focal areas in order of priority? So of course, the one you consider the highest priority should be your number 1, and then from there downwards towards the less high priority focal areas. But please, if you are not muted, please mute yourself because we are hearing some noises. So far, it looks like integrating with institutional data systems such as CMS systems seems the highest priority, followed by support digitization by integrating with workflows. Then we have expanding the data, followed by support DiSSCo services such as Elvis. Oh, just got overtaken by creating integration with third parties. But it looks like integrating with institutional data systems is considered as the highest priority by the community. And supporting digitization by integrating with workflows is a close second so far. Okay, thank you. Let's do one more question before the break. In terms of data, what would be your priority? So we have data quality enhancement, data enrichment, increasing data quantity, data search and analysis functions, data expert options, non-public data, and other. If you choose other, you can also let us know in the chat. Just put the number of the question and then followed by any other data, the priority in terms of data. All right, so it looks by far the data quality enhancement is considered a priority by the participants here in this workshop. And as we saw, it's quite a nice representation of the community. So we should also consider that we can extrapolate some feedback from this for sure. We also have data enrichment, and then to a lesser extent, increasing data quantity and data expert options. And then yeah, 3 others. So please let us know also in the chat what those are. I think we can stop here for now because it's 10:30 now. So let's go for a break, and then we'll follow that up by a few other questions. Anton said that the batch data imports should also be on the list. For example, annotations which stem from other resources. So thanks for that input, Anton. Yeah, I think we can have a break now, and then we'll be back in half an hour to wrap up the Mentimeter sessions with a few more questions, and then we'll hand over back to Wouter. So thanks so far. Wouter, do you have any other comments before we go on the break?
No, I have not. Thanks, everybody, for your first feedback. We will continue with some more detailed questions after the coffee break. You have a half an hour, nicely on time. So we will reconvene at 11 Central European time.
Perfect. See you all at 11 then.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed your break. And we can now continue with the Mentimeter slides. So I give the floor back to Marco.
Yep, thank you, Walter. Let me just clear my screen again, and then we can continue with the questions. Here we are. Hope everyone sees the screen now. So the next question we have is, to support digitization, what should have priority? And then we have integration with institutional digitization workflows, automation through MAS, which I believe is the machine annotated services, integration with citizen science platforms, virtual collections and expert community support, and enhanced annotation and curation functions. So let us know, in your opinion, which of these should have priority. So many of you are saying that integration with institutional digitization workflows should be priority number one. Some of you are also saying that this should be automation through MAS. And then fewer of you are saying that, in fact, it should be the virtual collections and expert communities support and enhanced annotations and curation functions. While integration with citizen science platforms seems to be a bit less of a priority. Okay, thank you for your replies. Now we can go to the next question. And this one refers to functions to support users of DiSSCo. So please again rank them, and if it's something else, if you choose other, then you can also share that with us in the Zoom chat. Annotation workflows is shaping up to be the number one chosen option for functions to support users of DiSSCo, followed by a close battle between advanced search and expert functions, then followed by virtual collections, APIs, quality indicators, and finally mobile interface. Couple more seconds. All right, on to the next question. Findability and reuse. Again, 5 different options to rank. Findability in search engines, CEO, the SEO, APIs and serialization to promote integration, DOI's uptake in external infrastructures, and integration in journal publishing systems. If there's an abbreviation or a term that you're not sure about, just also let us know in the chat, and then someone from the technical team will come back to you in that. But it looks like the APIs and serialization for promoting integration seems to be the key aspect of when it comes to finability and reuse, as well as DOI's uptake in external infrastructure, which is also considered by many of you as quite a crucial component here. One more seconds. Right, thank you. We have two more questions. Next one, what type of data enrichment are the most important? What types of data enrichment are the most important? Another ranking question. So we have history of the specimens in terms of events, supporting materials, description of specimen parts, entity relationships, assertions, label digitization. Label digitization takes the first spot, followed by entity relationships. And then as we go down the list, description of specimens parts, history of the specimen, and then supporting materials and assertions. And let's give it a few more seconds to see if
Marco, someone asked, what does assertions mean? So maybe that needs to be cleared up.
I just
yeah.
typed it in the chat.
Okay, thank you, Wouter. Okay, it looks like that was all. And then we go to the final question. So what types of support would you like from mass annotation systems? And here you can choose between identification, digitization, data quality improvement, data enrichment, data analysis, measurements, georeferencing, or other. So once again, if you choose other, let us know in the chat what exactly you have in mind. And of course, you can choose as many options as you want. So it's safe to say that all of these would be quite needed, but of course, there are some which are considered to be The biggest priority, which would be georeferencing, and then also data quality improvement, data enrichment, closely followed by identification, digitization, and then a bit less, but still quite relevant, it seems, measurements and data analysis. And it looks like this is quite a good spectrum of different options because we have nothing for others. So it looks like we have everything covered here. And that's it. So we are finished with the Mentimeter. We will, of course, share all these results with you after we processed the results. And now I give the floor back. I will stop sharing my screen. I'll give the floor back to Wouter.
Thanks, Marco. And thanks everybody for giving your prioritizations. That was a very useful exercise for us, I think. And yeah, we can now open the floor for discussion. We have the next part until 12 to have further discussions. If you have a question or you want to raise something, please raise your hand. Let me start with a question because I saw that the export options, so further development of export options and advanced search were ranked very high. Up to now, we were thinking, well, maybe that's not so important in the DiSSCo infrastructure because we intend at the end to publish the data in aggregators like GBIF and DiSSCo, and the geodata in geo aggregators like what is it called? So we were thinking that you would use the aggregators like GBIF to do your advanced search and export your data, rather than doing that in the DiSSCo infrastructure. So yeah, I would be interested to know why you think it's important to have that as part of the infrastructure, and what kind of functionality you are thinking about. Kim.
Thank you. So here's my take on your question. So I can imagine that we would use the annotation services as part of our digitization process, and we would like to get the results back as soon as possible and back into our CMS system. And here I'm thinking, okay, I need some form of export, or at least a select export of the information generated by some annotation service. Okay, so that's my take on this.
Okay. So to get the data back into the CMS system.
Yeah.
Good. Any other opinions? Piotr.
Yeah, thank you. My question is about the degree of integration with GBIF, because you just mentioned that you were expected GBIF to take role of to search through the DiSSCo resources, but then it would need all the GBIF, all the DiSSCo mobilized specimens to be available through GBIF. So if not, then you need an advanced GBIF search data search engine. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of aspects to that. So first of all, the scope of GBIF and scope of DiSSCo is a bit different because we are focusing on all the natural history collections, where GBIF is focusing on all occurrence-related data. And that means that it is currently not possible to share data about geological collections, extraterrestrial collections, and etc. But there are other aggregators out there that could be used for that kind of information. And another limitation is that in our current data models, so in our OpenDS specification, we have a lot of information that is not currently included in community standards like Darwin Core and ABCD. So you cannot currently share your data with these standards. Of course, we are discussing that within TEDWIC, within the biodiversity standards community, and see if we can make enhancements there. But at the end, we will need the new DBIF data model that the DBIF is working on to share that extra information. So if we share data right now with DBIF, if we had a publication route right now, then we could use that to share quality enhanced information of the data. That's already part of Darwin Core ABCD. But we cannot share that additional data. So yeah, that data you would still need to get from the DiSSCo infrastructure at the moment. That may change when the DBIF advanced or new data model is in place, but that will take a couple of years. Okay. Kim.
Just changing the subject slightly. Well, it's basically a little bit related anyway. I'm concerned with this thing of that any user of Discover can basically do annotations, and for this to work and be something that we would actually consider taking back into our CMS systems, it is super important that we have this provenance, that we know what happened, and also some form of ranking or indication of the who did actually add this annotations. So if this is this is sort of input into the future plans, this would be good to think into the next round of development.
Yeah, if you look at our model for annotations, then you will find that we include information about the agents who made the annotation, and you can also state a reason and some background information. So yeah, we have that. We store a lot of provenance information for everything that happens on the distal specimens. We store, and you can retrieve that. So yeah, that is certainly taken into account and possible. What we are not so certain about is what would be the most useful for institutions to retrieve as kind of data, because we were planning to integrate at the end the annotations after a community validation process in the distal specimens. And we were thinking that it may be the most useful for collection management systems to retrieve these agreed and merged back annotations, so the updated distal specimen information, rather than the annotations themselves. So I don't know how you see that. It's also I think the case that some of these annotations will never be merged with the specimen data, because these are more like comments on the data, rather than changes or additions of data. Yeah, so what is your opinion about that? How would you see that? Do you need a kind of a filtering possibility to filter out the information that is relevant, or do you want just to get everything and do the filtering yourself? Kim?
Sorry for taking the word again.
It's fine.
Yeah, I think control is the key here. I would like to control what I put back into my CMS system. and to be honest, I'm mostly thinking of the ones the things generated by this mass or the automated annotations. This is probably where I can see the most benefit from our side. But I mean, if I have provenance information, then I basically would like to see the whole thing, and then I can decide myself what I should include, rather than only seeing certain things that are sort of approved by DiSSCo.
Okay. Any other opinions on that? Frederick.
Yes, well, I suppose this is very similar to the old way of annotating specimens, where researchers or people put like little annotations on the specimen, and then it was also the database manager that decided what to include in the institutional database. So I suppose this will be a similar way of working, but then with digital data rather than physical data. So I don't see major issues here. That was my point.
Okay. I see a question from Matthias in the chat. I suppose advanced search and bulk export will be key to be available to sift through large volumes of annotations. Yeah, I guess so. If you want to sift through these, so all the annotations will get identifiers and can be retrieved from the system. Also through the APIs. Does that answer your question, Matthias?
Well, my point was mainly with the question that you posed earlier about the use case for advanced search capabilities and export services for DiSSCo.
Yeah.
When you said that a lot of these things could be taken care of by downstream aggregators like GBIF.
Yeah.
Well, DiSSCo aims to build quite a few things that are not going to go, at least not immediately, to these downstream aggregators.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then these services will be key to be able to use things like the annotations made. Because like Frederick said, it's a bit similar to how things used to be done, except that now we have machine annotation services. So the volume of these annotations could go up with many orders of magnitude. And that makes being able to search and carefully analyze these annotations much more important than it was in the past.
Yeah. Okay. I see a comment also from Quentin about the iNaturalist model for identification annotating, which works extremely well and is very successful. I think the model that iNaturalist uses actually is a very simple model, Quentin.
I think that's why it works.
Yeah, yeah. So do you think we should adopt a similar, very simple model?
I think the beauty of it is definitely the simplicity. It's all open forever and transparent. I think what the issue is and why it's going to cause friction is because effectively I'm hearing talk about keeping collection management systems in institutions in sync with the center, and I can't see how that can happen when you've got a dynamic changing annotations or consensus on an identification on something, and you've got several million things to try and keep up to date. I think somebody talked about going through and checking and deciding which one they want to bring across, and that's never going to happen in any big institution. There's just not enough manpower to do that, and I'm not sure we'd even want to do that because it would just take too much time, and we're trying to automate things here. So so there will be a separation between collection management system information and what's held centrally by DiSSCo, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. so long as they're linked, obviously, by identifiers.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, that's the case. So we always keep that one-to-one relationship to the physical specimen identifier and the digital one. But yeah, that's the question. So I hear some people saying, well, we want to get the data back and get that in our systems. But you're right that if there are many changes and updates, that is probably not feasible at some point. And the question is also, yeah, how useful is it to try to keep that information updated in a local collection management system if that data is also just available online? So I don't know any opinions about that. Sharif.
I was just gonna comment on what Quentin was talking about. So yeah, I agree. I also looked into the iNaturalist stuff. I think it would be important to research that a bit more. But they also make a distinction between this idea of research grade data versus non-research grade. And I think that's the way they do it is that based on consensus. So that's something also we should look into that. I mean, there might be some debate about categorizing some of this data as research grade or citizen science grade and things like that. But yeah, I agree. I think we should look into that. But they have a very specific definition of what they think research grade, which a lot of people might not agree. So that might be also important. Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments? Piotr. Piotr first, Frederick.
Okay, thank you. I would like to use the opportunity to ask you the important question from my point of view about the way you expect the CMSs, the content management systems, we have in some nodes at least. How do you expect us to provide the data for DiSSCo? Because in my case, it is that I'm a manager of the GBIF node. We have a number of data sets provided through IPT. There is a number of additional IPT installations from different collections in Poland. And then is there a plan to create a counterpart of IPT for DiSSCo data model? Or you just, is Darwin Core or BioCase the only way for now you expect us to provide the data for DiSSCo central services? Because I would like to create a plan. What should I? Yeah, I would like to know what should I think about, what to prepare for, to cooperate, to be a closer partner for DiSSCo system. So I'm just not sure what should I do? What should I prepare for?
Yeah. The short answer is we don't know yet. Because it is so we created this initial route so that that information that's already published through to IPTs and providers of ABCD. Yeah, we can just ingest that data that's already there, is already available. But it's obvious that there are limitations with that, and that you cannot always share all the data that we would like to have in our digital specimens. So we need to find alternative routes for that. And what I got from today is that many people want to have a more integration with the CMSs. So getting the data directly from the CMSs. So maybe we can do some work on that for some of the major platforms, for people that use CMS systems that are widely used. We have been thinking about, well, maybe we can extend the current standards like Darwin Core with extensions, but that still doesn't work for some things, because Darwin Core is kind of a star schema. It's basically for occurrence data sharing, and not for specimens, because there is a many-to-many relationship possible between specimens and occurrences. It's just impossible to share all data. Also, not from specimen parts, who were also seen as important to describe. So yeah, we need some alternative, and I think we need to discuss in the TETWIG community what to do about it. Because one thing is that we could publish our OpenDS schemas as a new standard and develop a kind of an IPT tool for that, and go that route. Or we can just focus on the direct integrations with the CMS systems, or we can go to a new community model that can include all the specimen data that we want. A model that is based on our OpenDS work, but also on the work that's being done in DBIF with the new DBIF data model, because DBIF will have the same issue here. Yeah, so that is, I think, the first step to do to discuss that in the TETWIG community, how to go around that before we can actually provide a solution. But still, for datasets that are already out there in Darwin Core or in ABCD, it is already possible in principle to share that with DiSSCo, and I think that gives a good basis, a good start to work with.
And just to finish it, thank you. I think that it would be maybe worth thinking about creating a counterpart of the IPT, just a kind of tool provider for encompass the data in the DiSSCo data model, just to make the data fit for your needs, and then each of the nodes which provides data to GBIF and to DiSSCo can connect the provider to the same source and serving different sets of data or different structure for different infrastructures. So it would be maybe the optimal solution if it's possible. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. And I go to Frederick, and then I see a question in the chat as well by Eli. Frederick?
Just to quickly come back to the question of how we define a research-grade data, such as identifications there. I think the link with, link between specimen data and literature is of course very important, where you can consider data published in the literature as being quite reliable. But of course, other models are also possible, or a combination of different models is possible, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, another thing we have been thinking about. So as part of the TETRAS project, CTAF is working on a marketplace for taxonomic expertise, and maybe we can link the taxonomic expertise to the people that are making annotations for the identification of the specimens. And maybe we can then also do something with putting a kind of a research grade stamp on that, if we know that these are specialists from the fields, as opposed to basically anybody with an ORCID can annotate. Yeah, there was a question from Eli. The MVP is meant to provide data as fair distal objects, but this was not mentioned today. Is it still a priority? Yes, the MVP, the core infrastructure, is based on fair distal objects. So yeah, that is a core part of the infrastructure. And basically we already realized that by having DOIs for the distal specimens, with some metadata included in the PIT records, in the DOI records, and that metadata is machine readable. We have schemas to describe the schema, the metadata, so that machines can figure that out and can also act on the data. So principle, we have distal, everything in our core infrastructure is a fair distal object. So the distal specimens, but also the distal media, but also the annotations, everything in DiSSCo is a fair digital object with an identifier with some metadata, and can be acted on by both humans and machines in principle. Are we planning to use our crate for this? We have been considering this as part of the options for exporting. So we do not currently plan to use our crate for individual digital specimen objects. But I could imagine that we use it to export a set of specimens as a data set, which could be expressed as an hour crate. But that mainly depends on the demands on the user needs. So if you say, well, I would like to have that, we can put it in our backlog and see if we can at some point in the future work on that. Does that answer your question, Eli?
Yes, thank you. I have a bit of a follow-up. Are the FDOs that you're making very specific to DiSSCo data and this particular domain, or can they be interoperable with data from other domains?
Yeah, they can still certainly be interoperable with other domains. But they also contain some domain-specific metadata to describe the objects. So, for instance, we include the discipline in which a specimen falls as a way to categorize the specimens. For some of these the digital objects in our infrastructure, we use standards like schema.org to describe the objects, and that makes it interoperable with data in other infrastructures. So we use a combined approach with having some more generic metadata. That's the same for all our digital objects, and that could also be useful for digital objects in other infrastructures, and some domain-specific metadata as well. Okay. Any other comments? One other question I have is about the GBIF publication route. So it was mentioned as a priority to work on a publication route towards GBIF. The data that we currently have is, as far as it is concerning biological specimens, is already in GBIF. So we are just we have in our MVP, we have the plan to ingest some data that's already published in GBIF. So I could imagine that if we create a route with GBIF, that we can share then the updated quality improved data. But then I think that should replace the current dataset that is published in GBIF, not to create duplication. So how do you see that workflow? Would you expect that you at some point publish your dataset in DiSSCo and then give permission to share that with GBIF? Would you take then out your currently shared dataset with GBIF? How do you see that? No opinions on that? Any thought from DBIF nodes on this?
Maybe another way to think about this question is currently people are citing the DOIs from GBIF, the dataset level DOIs. I mean, most of the publications. So that practice probably also will be extended with our digital specimen DOIs.
Yeah.
So I think that probably also people need to remember that. I think, yeah, I think a couple of points.
Piotr.
Just if you could rephrase your question, what are you going to about? Are we talking about duplication or citation of the data?
Duplication.
Duplication.
Yeah. So the publication routes with DiSSCo in between the institution and GBIF.
Yeah, but actually the problem is still not solved at the level of GBIF. So maybe this is a good moment to think about avoiding it or managing this problem at the DiSSCo side. I have no any suggestions how to do that, because it's a global problem actually. And it's an important question. Thank you for that.
Okay, Kim.
Yeah, so it is very problematic if we create duplicate records in GBIF, so we should try to avoid that. I'm a little bit in doubt about this thing, whether it's a good idea that DiSSCo takes over this role and publish this. How do we still keep track of that this data came from, let's say, from my museum? Like this is relevant when we also do publication statistics afterwards.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on how to sort of keep the history here?
Yeah, in principle, that is in the digital specimen metadata. So even in the DOI records, it is mentioned which institution is hosting the specimen through the ROR of the institution. So that information can easily be provided, but yeah, it would need to be discussed with GBIF, because currently you have a publisher in GBIF, and in that case, the publisher will be DiSSCo. And yeah, you want to give credits, of course, to the hosting institution as well. So, but on the other hand, you also want to give credits on the wider community who has been working on annotating that digital specimen. So it should probably not be only the hosting institution that should be giving credit, but also all the people who worked on improving the quality and enriching the information of the digital specimen. So I think it's a good question, but yeah, I don't have an answer for that, and I think we need to discuss that. Quentin.
Yeah, it just occurs to me that it might be a very useful way of publishing for small collections that may be just digitized once in one big lump, that may only have a curator and maybe a few volunteers working in them. I mean, we're talking collections, say 100,000 specimens or something like that. They haven't got an IT team, and they're going to need a place to put their things in, a way to keep their data fresh, and it would be better on DiSSCo Central and then publish to GBIF from there, rather than trying to keep an IPT going all the time.
Yeah.
And I think, although they're small collections, there are a lot of them, and they amount to quite a lot of specimens in the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, and there will certainly also be collections in DiSSCo that are not yet published in DBIF, and it will be nice to have them in DBIF, of course. Another thing I think we need to discuss is at what point will a digital specimen be shared with GBIF? Because as long as that is a mid-level 0 record with only an image, or not even an image, but just the information that it exists with an identifier and an hosting institution, that will probably not be enough to share that specimen with GBIF. If you want to have some data that's of scientific relevance, So probably at least a mid-level 1 specimen before you share that with GBIF. Yeah, but then it needs to be discussed where the cut should be made. So when is the data ready to be published in GBIF when it's relevant enough? Heimo.
So what we have is quite some experience with sharing data for multiple institutions from one system, so the SHAC system. What we did is we informed the institutions that they should decide if they want to have their data published. So this would be necessary also for DiSSCo once data are proliferated. What I'm also thinking about is GBIF is not the only aggregator getting our data. So what we do is exposing data to Europeana, to GBIF, to national sources like Atlas of Living Austria and stuff. So there should be a rule set in place and a governance model to how to publish and further publish. What I don't see is problematic is duplication. So having a GBIF identifier, having an internal CMS data identifier, having a DiSSCo identifier, I think you can deduplicate easily. And there's mechanisms already in place. But like governance is really important. And publisher, what we kept always different or separate from the SHAC platform, the publisher is always the institution and not the aggregator. So just we would have some experience if it's coming to have discussions about the publication and further proliferating into various aggregators.
Yeah.
One topic that I see is also appearing in the European Open Science Cloud discussions is keeping things from a global perspective, from a regional, like European perspective, and from a national and institutional perspective. So this needs also to be included. And what we think is data, once they are identified as being openly available, they should be openly available, generally speaking, globally. So not restricting and not having limits of any kind. And so there the input from the DiSSCo internal discussions to the development of EOSC is very important.
Okay, that are a lot of things that you said. A lot of good comments. Yeah, I think one comment you made is that there are many infrastructures that you may want to publish to, not only GBIF but others as well. We have especially been thinking about DiOCase here as an aggregator for the logical samples. So the infrastructure hosted by CTAF. How familiar are you with DiOCase as an infrastructure for Earth sample data? Is that something that is widely known and used in the community already? Patrick?
Well, my point was not on GeoCase, although I followed it up.
Okay.
Well, for GeoCase, I can say that there is a portal running, but mobilizing further content is a bit tricky and it needs some improvement in the way on how to provide the data and training. And then I think it can really mobilize. And also the way it shows the data on the front end is really nice. What I wanted to come back is what Heimo a bit said about EOSC. I participated last week in Berlin to their symposium. And honestly, I'm a bit frightened by the European autonomy fear from hacking or any competition. And they also address the research infrastructure, or if they want to connect to the new EU EOSC node. So they want to ban any reuse from non-EU participants, which is surely not something what GBIF or DiSSCo want, with all our collections from outer Europe and our global scope. And also somebody in the room told them for authentication to use ORCID, and they said they would never use it because it's a US-based development. So they are now busy, if you check the EOSC EU node, redeveloping GitHub, Google, name it, with only EU local development. And there are many in the room thought that they are going too far in this direction. I did ask one of the developers from DG Connect if we can have derogations for existing tools, and especially GB for DiSSCo or things that have already been developed. It's the same for cultural heritage. We also have a wider scope than the EU, and even are mandated to give access on reuse from the citizens of country of origin, just naming Nagoya or other. They absolutely don't understand that. And one of them told us, if we have a global scope, our place is not there. So I think it's really time that maybe GB for the biodiversity community is talking to those people. Now, it's not everybody at EOSC, it's not to generalize. So many of the research infrastructures and also of the EOSC Association are absolutely not agreeing with this. But there is a group, especially among the developers, who really want to close down anything. Somebody from EGI said that he's also not agreeing and would look into that and come back to us. But I think it's really time that we are more present in EOSC and really tell them that this is not the way to go. We understand problems of hacking, or VHL was completely down on Internet Archive for several weeks due to a hacking. So we understand that this is a problem, but there are ways to protect that by cybersecurity without cutting off our international collaboration, I think. So I think we should really act there.
Okay, thanks, Pat. Yeah, things in EOSC are developing fast, and there are many different opinions sometimes expressed in EOSC. So I think we should, yeah, it's good to closely follow that, because at the end we want to be compatible, of course, with EOSC. But at the same time, I think we should focus on our own needs and make sure that these needs are covered. Taking your example of ORCIDs, I see also wide support in EOSC. If you talk with partners from the Fair for EOSC project, then they are advocating a lot to have ORCIDs in the metadata of the bit records. So yeah, I think there are currently different opinions. I hope that we do not go to a situation that Europe says, well, we need to we cannot make use of global systems and we need to develop everything our own. And that would not be good, especially for our needs on global data. But I don't think we will end up there. So let's see where it goes. Yeah, we are nearly at the end of the session, so I think there's not much time for further discussion. To quickly summarize, I have seen people giving a lot of priority in a few different areas, especially in making the connection with the local institutional systems, in particular the collection management systems. Digitization, support for digitization, workflows, and digitizing the label information. I think was also seen as important. The publication of the improved data to GBIF was also mentioned as very important. And the uptake of the DOIs, the identifiers that we mint in infrastructures, is also something to work on. So that I think are a few things to take back. Virtual collections I have also seen mentioned quite a few times. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's very useful information. We will use this to further discuss our roadmap for the continued development of the core infrastructure after the MVP. We are still hoping that the MVP will be ready by the end of this year for use. We have a bit more time in the projects. We have the deliverable in May, so we can do that later if necessary. But it would be really nice if we could have that by the end of this year already, so that we can start testing that with users and improving that. Yeah. So to conclude, everybody, thanks a lot for your inputs. Very useful session, I think. And yeah, hope to see you back in other meetings in the DiSSCo Transition projects. One thing that I want to mention also is that we, as part of the project, we have bi-monthly demo sessions given by the DiSSCo development team at Naturalis, where the team demonstrates what they have been working on the past 2 months and the plans for the next 2 months. Everybody is welcome to join these sessions. You can find more information on our DiSSCo.tech platform. These sessions are also recorded, so you can also watch them if you cannot attend them afterwards. For this this workshop, the recording will also be shared afterwards, so that people who could not attend the workshop can still look at the recording. So thanks everybody, and see you around.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Goodbye.